Did you know that behind the gilded doors of the Hofburg Palace, amidst the weight of empires and the endless demands of ruling, some of the most powerful Habsburgs held secret passions, eccentric hobbies, and truly bizarre talents? We are talking about emperors and empresses who shaped the map of Europe, yet harbored private worlds that would stun even the most seasoned royal watcher. Forget the stuffy portraits and the long lists of decrees. These roues were not just about power and diplomacy. Some were master mechanics, others secret playwrights, and one even had an unexpected knack for financial auditing. Prepare to have your perceptions of royalty completely shattered as we pull back the velvet curtain on their most unexpected gifts. Number 7. Rudolf II, the Emperor of obsessive clockwork. Imagine a man who ruled an empire stretching across much of Central Europe, yet preferred the quiet whir of gears and the intricate dance of tiny metal figures to the clamor of court or the drone of state affairs. That was Rudolf, the second Holy Roman Emperor, King of Bohemia, and a patron of the arts and sciences, whose true hidden passion lay not just in collecting, but in the meticulous, almost spiritual, pursuit of clockwork and automatons. While chroniclers often speak of his reclusiveness, his fascination with the occult, and his legendary art collections, fewer detail the extraordinary lengths to which he went to understand and create mechanical marvels. Rudolf spent a fortune diverting funds that many thought better spent on armies or administration to bring the finest clockmakers, mechanists, and inventors from all corners of Europe to his court in Prague. He wasn't just interested in beautiful timepieces. He craved machines that mimicked life, that moved with precision, that were small universes of gears and springs. Inside the Prague castle, far from the prying eyes of ambassadors and nobles, Rudolf had a series of workshops. These weren't mere storerooms for finished products. They were active laboratories, often filled with the rhythmic tick of dozens of clocks, the faint smell of oil and metal, and the focused whispers of master craftsmen. One of the most famous figures to grace his workshops was the Swiss clockmaker Hans Schlotheim. Schlotheim created incredible pieces for Rudolf, including elaborate automatons that could perform complex movements. There was a self-propelled chariot, for example, designed to move across a table while small figures inside enacted a miniature tableau. Rudolf was not merely a passive observer. Records show he would spend hours, sometimes days, with these artisans. He would pore over designs, ask detailed questions about the mechanisms, and even suggest modifications. His hands, often described as delicate by those who observed him in court, would carefully handle tiny springs and gears, a stark contrast to the heavy scepter he was expected to wield. His contemporaries might have seen his withdrawal from political life as a sign of weakness or eccentricity, but for Rudolf these mechanical pursuits were a sanctuary. In a world of political intrigue and religious strife, the immutable laws of physics and the predictable precision of a perfectly crafted clock offered a strange comfort. He was seeking to unlock the secrets of creation itself, not through magic, but through engineering. He commissioned an astonishing array of complex devices: astrological clocks that mapped the heavens with incredible accuracy, musical automatons that played intricate tunes, and even mechanical figures that could mimic human actions like walking or riding. Some whispered that he was attempting to create life, not through alchemy but through pure mechanical genius. One particular example illustrates his dedication. Rudolf commissioned a globe that was not just a map of the world but an intricate moving representation of the cosmos. It was to be a marvel of gears and clockwork, showing the movements of the planets according to the most advanced astronomical theories of the time. This project was years in the making, requiring the expertise of numerous engineers, astronomers, and artists. Rudolf personally oversaw its progress, often arriving unannounced in the workshops, his eyes alight with an almost childlike wonder as he examined the latest advancements. For Rudolf, the movement of a perfectly balanced pendulum or the synchronized whir of interlocking gears was more beautiful, more profound than any treaty or coronation. His hidden talent was not just appreciating mechanical genius, but deeply understanding it, pushing its boundaries, and finding solace in its unwavering logic. Number 6. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the master of meticulous curiosities. When people think of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the image that usually springs to mind is one of political tension, assassination, and the spark that ignited the First World War. Many also know of his passion for hunting, his formidable collection of trophies adorning the walls of his castle. However, a less known and far more surprising hidden talent of the Archduke was his almost obsessive and deeply personal curation of Konopiście Castle, transforming it into a living, breathing museum of his own highly specific and meticulously organized collections. This was not merely the act of a wealthy man acquiring pretty things. It was the work of a dedicated, even perfectionist curator who knew every single item, its history, and its precise placement. Konopiście, his private residence in Bohemia, became the ultimate canvas for his curatorial vision. While he had a staff, Franz Ferdinand himself was the true mastermind behind the arrangement and cataloging of its vast contents. His hunting trophies, yes, were prominently displayed, but his collecting habits went far beyond taxidermy. He amassed an astonishing array of medieval artifacts, particularly suits of armor, weaponry, and ecclesiastical art. His collection of St. George iconography, for instance, was considered one of the largest and most comprehensive in the world. But it was the way he organized them that revealed his true hidden talent. Franz Ferdinand possessed an almost photographic memory for his possessions. He could recall the exact provenance of a piece of armor, the date a particular tapestry was acquired, or the precise number of buttons on a servant's uniform from his historical collections. He personally supervised the arrangement of every room, often moving items himself, or directing his staff with precise instructions. He cared deeply about the context and narrative of each display. For example, he wouldn't just hang a collection of swords. He would arrange them chronologically, by region of origin, or by type, creating an educational experience for anyone lucky enough to be given a tour. His attention to detail was legendary. Records from the Konopiście estate reveal his meticulous inventorying system. Each item, down to the smallest figurine or painting, was logged, described, and given a specific location. He developed a system of numbering and labeling that was ahead of its time, anticipating modern museum practices. He even oversaw the precise angle at which a painting was hung, or the exact spot where a piece of furniture was placed. Convinced that optimal viewing and historical accuracy were paramount, this was not the work of a distant patron, but of a hands-on manager with a genuine passion for preservation and display. His private chambers at Konopiście were a testament to this hidden talent. While the public rooms were grand, his personal spaces were filled with the controlled chaos of objects, each with its place, each telling a story. He loved showing visitors his collections, not in a boastful way, but with the pride of a curator presenting his life's work. He would explain the intricacies of a particular lock on an old chest, or the historical significance of a specific type of helmet, demonstrating an encyclopedic knowledge that surprised many who only saw him as a rigid military man. In essence, Franz Ferdinand transformed his home into a highly personalized, deeply researched museum, a world-class collection. Meticulously caused, this intense, private dedication to ordering and presenting historical objects was a talent few outside his immediate circle ever truly appreciated. Number 5. Maximilian I, the Emperor of Self-Promotion by Prince Maximilian I. The last knight is often remembered for his chivalric ideals, his love of jousting, and his relentless pursuit of dynastic marriages. He was a man of action, a warrior, and a skilled diplomat who laid the groundwork for the vast Habsburg Empire. What is less known and truly surprising is that Maximilian possessed a hidden talent far ahead of his time. He was a pioneering master of self-promotion and propaganda through the then revolutionary medium of print. He didn't just commission books, he conceived of their content, directed their illustration, and ensured their widespread distribution, making him an accidental, yet remarkably effective, early modern marketing genius. In an era when most rulers relied on oral proclamations, handwritten decrees, and stained glass windows to convey their image, Maximilian grasped the potential of the printing press with an intuitive understanding that few contemporaries possessed. He understood that mass-produced images and texts could shape public opinion, glorify his lineage, and immortalize his achievements in a way no scribe or court painter ever could. He wasn't simply a patron, he was the creative director, behind massive, multi-volume projects designed to cement his legacy. His most ambitious projects were autobiographical and allegorical epics. The Ordunk, Weisskönig, and Friedel. These weren't straightforward historical accounts. They were highly stylized, fictionalized narratives of his own life, portraying him as a heroic knight, undertaking grand adventures, navigating treacherous political landscapes, and overcoming mythical beasts. Maximilian didn't just approve these projects, he was deeply involved in their conception. He dictated long passages to scribes, describing scenes and characters, even providing detailed instructions for the woodcut illustrations. He had a clear vision of how he wanted to be perceived, and he used the printing press to meticulously craft that image. Consider the Ordunk, a poetic allegory of his journey to marry Mary of Burgundy. Maximilian personally oversaw the creation of its 118 intricate woodcut illustrations, working closely with master artists like Hans Birkmair and Leonhard Beck. He would review proofs, suggest changes to a knight's armor, the expression on a horse's face, or the precise positioning of a landscape feature. This was not a passive role. He was a hands-on art director, demonstrating an unexpected eye for visual storytelling and graphic design. He understood that the images were just as important as the text in conveying his message of chivalry, courage, and divine favor. His talent extended to the practicalities of production. He understood the economics of printing, the need for quality paper, and the importance of distribution. He founded printing presses, employed skilled typesetters, and ensured that these elaborate, expensive volumes reached not only the elite courts of Europe, but also to some extent a wider, curious public. He effectively created the first celebrity biography on a grand scale, leveraging technology to manage his personal brand. While his military campaigns and diplomatic maneuvers often met with mixed results, his printed legacy was an unmitigated success. Through his hidden talent for controlling the narrative via the printed word and image, Maximilian ensured that his vision of himself, the chivalrous last knight, would endure for centuries, far outliving his actual reign. He was, in a very real sense, the Habsburgs' first media mogul. Number 4. Leopold I. The Emperor of Sacred Sound, Emperor Leopold I, who reigned as Holy Roman Emperor for nearly half a century in the latter part of the 17th century, is often depicted in history books as a serious, devoted. His public persona was one of grave responsibility and unwavering piety. Yet beneath this weighty exterior lay a profound, consuming, and surprisingly prolific hidden talent. He was a dedicated and accomplished composer of sacred music, viewing music not merely as entertainment, but as a direct pipeline to the divine. Unlike many rulers who simply patronized musicians, Leopold was a serious student and practitioner of composition. From a young age, he received extensive musical training far beyond the typical instruction given to princes. He learned to play several instruments, including the harpsichord and violin, but his true passion was composition. He spent countless hours in his private studies, often late into the night, penning scores. His compositions weren't light, courtly tunes. They were predominantly serious, complex, sacred works, oratorios, requiems, motets, and operas based on religious themes. One of his most notable works was the oratorio Il Sagrido di Abramo, the sacrifice of Abraham, a testament to his deep theological understanding, and musical skill. His music often reflected the profound spiritual anxieties and triumphs of his age, marked by the ongoing Counter-Reformation. He viewed composing as a form of prayer, a devotional act that allowed him to express his faith and connect with the spiritual realm in a way that statecraft rarely could. His dedication was so intense that despite the immense pressures of his imperial duties, he managed to compose over 200 known works, a truly staggering output for any composer, let alone a reigning emperor. Court records and personal letters reveal the extent of this hidden talent. Leopold would often retreat to his private music chambers, where he would work on his scores, sometimes for hours on end, completely absorbed in the melodies and harmonies. He would consult with his court kapellmeisters and musicians, not as a superior issuing commands, but as a fellow artist seeking to perfect his craft. He was open to criticism and eager to learn, a humility that surprised many given his absolute power. He understood the intricacies of counterpoint and orchestration, often sketching out complex vocal lines and instrumental textures. His compositions were performed regularly in the Hofburg chapel and at court, but for Leopold the act of creation was as important as the performance. It was his personal solace, a space where he could transcend the earthly burdens of kingship. While his ministers debated taxes and treaties, Leopold might be wrestling with a difficult fugue or perfecting the emotional arc of a recitative. His deep personal involvement in music went far beyond the ceremonial duties expected of a monarch. It was a genuine artistic calling, a hidden world of sacred sound, where the Holy Roman Emperor became simply a composer, seeking harmony, both divine and musical. This unwavering commitment to his art, despite the demands of his crown, marked him as a truly unique and surprisingly prolific artistic figure among European monarchs. Number 3. Maria Theresa, the Empress who directed domestic dramas. Empress Maria Theresa, the formidable ruler of the Habsburg monarchy, is remembered for her unwavering political will, her sweeping administrative reforms, and her 16 children. She was a woman of immense strength, pragmatism, and a deep sense of duty, guiding her vast and diverse realms through challenging times. Yet, beneath the stoic portraits and the serious decrees, Maria Theresa harbored a surprisingly intimate and largely hidden talent. She was an enthusiastic and deeply involved director of private theater. This wasn't about funding grand public operas, though she did that too. This was about personal participation. Maria Theresa found joy and a unique form of expression in organizing, casting, and even directing plays and musical interludes for her family and close court circle. These performances often took place in intimate settings within the Schönbrunn Palace or the Hofburg, far from the grand public theaters. Her children, particularly the younger ones, were frequently pressed into service as actors, dancers, and musicians. For Maria Theresa, these dramatic ventures were not just entertainment. They were a way to teach, to bond, and perhaps to exercise a different kind of control than that found in the state council. She had a particular fondness for French comedies and Italian intermezzi, often choosing pieces that allowed her to inject her own sense of humor or moral lessons. What makes her involvement truly a hidden talent is the level of her personal engagement. She wouldn't just delegate the task to a court official. She would personally oversee rehearsals, suggesting inflections for lines, advising on stage libreting, and even meticulously reviewing costumes and sets. Her keen eye for detail, so evident in her statecraft, also applied to the placement of a prop or the timing of a comedic pause. One example highlights this. For a birthday celebration for her husband, Emperor Francis Stephen Maria Theresa organized a multi-act play. She personally selected the script, assigned roles to her children and trusted courtiers, and spent weeks overseeing the preparations. Accounts from those present speak of her boundless energy during rehearsals, her sometimes stern but ultimately encouraging guidance to her young performers. She wanted the performances to be polished, engaging, and to convey a specific mood or message. Whether it was light-hearted celebration or a gentle moral lesson, her involvement wasn't just about fun. It was a shrewd, if subtle, way to observe her children's personalities, to foster their social graces, and to create a sense of cohesion within her enormous family. It was a space where the Empress could shed some of the weight of her crown and engage with her loved ones on a different level, guiding them through a shared creative. While historians focus on her political achievements, her talent for directing these domestic dramas reveals a woman who found a unique outlet for her powerful will and meticulous nature. Not just in running an empire, but in crassus to her heart. She was in essence a true impresarial of her private world, staging the unfolding narrative of her family's life. Number 2, Charles VI, the emperor who composed his own destiny. Charles VI, father of the legendary Maria Theresa, his efforts to secured for his pragmatic sanction and his somewhat melancholic demeanor. He was a ruler deeply committed to the prestige of his dynasty and the continuity of the Habsburg line, yet hidden beneath the layers of imperial duties and the burden of succession. Charles VI possessed a profound and exceptionally skilled talent for musical composition, particularly in the realm of sacred and operatic music. He was not just a patron of the arts. He was a serious, active composer whose works were performed at his own court and respected by his contemporaries. From his early years, Charles displayed an innate musicality that went beyond the expected appreciation of royalty. He received rigorous training in composition, not as a hobby, but as a serious academic pursuit. He studied counterpoint, harmony, and orchestration, developing a deep understanding of musical theory. He regularly played the harpsichord and even sang in court performances. But it was in the act of creating music that his true hidden genius lay. He composed numerous oratorios, masses, and even a few operas, often collaborating with leading librettists and musicians of his time, such as Johann Joseph Fuchs, his revered Kapellmeister. What made his talent surprising was the sheer volume and quality of his output, given the immense responsibilities of his position. He would frequently retreat to his private music room in the Hofburg, where he would spend hours meticulously penning scores. The sounds of his harpsichord practicing new melodic lines or testing harmonies would often waft through the palace halls, a stark contrast to the rigid protocols of the imperial court. One of his most significant works was the opera Costanza e Fortezza, Constancy and Fortitude, which plened in 1723 during his coronation as King of Bohemia. This was no mere ceremonial piece. It was a substantial work that showcased his sophisticated understanding of operatic form and dramatic pacing. He was deeply involved in its creation, from the selection of the libretto to the final orchestral arrangements. He was known to revise his scores meticulously, always striving for perfection, often seeking feedback from his court musicians, treating them not as subordinates, but as artistic peers. His dedication to music was not a fleeting fancy. It was a lifelong passion that provided him with solace and a powerful means of expression amidst the political machinations of his reign. He saw music as a divine art capable of conveying profound emotions and spiritual truths. It was a space where he could articulate his deepest feelings and thoughts, perhaps even his anxieties about the future of his dynasty, in a way that speeches and edicts never could. For Charles VI, composing was a necessary outlet, a private world of harmony and melody that existed in parallel to the grand, often discordant, symphony of European politics. His ability to create complex, moving musical works while simultaneously steering the fate of an empire revealed a depth of artistic talent that remained largely hidden from the wider world, known only to those privileged enough to witness his private devotion to sound. He truly composed not just music, but the soundtrack to his own imperial life. Number 1. Emperor Franz Joseph I, the Emperor of meticulous fiscal auditing. Emperor Franz Joseph I who ruled the Austro-Hungarian Empire for a remarkable 68 years, is globally recognized as the epitome of imperial stoicism. His image is one of a rigid, disciplined monarch, devoted to tradition, burdened by the immense responsibility of his sprawling multi-ethnic empire. He was famous for his simple lifestyle, rising early and working tirelessly. What remained surprisingly hidden, however, is his utterly meticulous, almost obsessive, personal talent for fiscal auditing of the imperial household, making him perhaps the most financially astute and hands-on monarch in modern European history. Franz Joseph was not content to simply sign off on budgets or trust the reports of his finance ministers when it came to his personal household expenses or the management of imperial properties. He demanded granular detail and personally reviewed ledgers, balance sheets, and expense reports with an intensity that would put a modern-day auditor to shame. This wasn't a perfunctory glance. He delved into the numbers, looking for discrepancies, scrutinizing line items and questioning expenditures down to the last florin. His personal offices at the Hofburg, often described as Spartan, were regularly filled with stacks of financial documents. He would spend hours typically in the early morning before his official duties began poring over these papers. He maintained his own meticulous notes, often cross-referencing figures from different departments in different years. He developed an uncanny knack for remembering specific budget allocations and past expenditures, often surprising his staff with his recall. One anecdote frequently recounted by those who worked closely with him illustrates this hidden talent. On one occasion, a budget for the imperial stables was presented to him. Franz Joseph, upon reviewing the figures, noticed a slight increase in the cost of oats compared to the previous year. He immediately summoned the head of the stables and demanded a detailed explanation. He wasn't satisfied with generalities. He wanted to know the specific market fluctuations, the quantity purchased, and the precise cost per bushel. His level of detail was legendary, and it instilled a pervasive culture of accountability within the imperial household. No expenditure, however small, escaped his potential scrutiny. This wasn't about personal greed. It was about an ingrained sense of thrift and responsibility. He believed that every penny of imperial funds, even those for his personal use, was ultimately the property of the state and its people. His personal frugality, well known to his close circle, extended to his personal habits as well. Living a life of relative simplicity, despite his immense wealth and power. His uniforms were often repaired rather than replaced, and his meals were modest. This wasn't just a character trait, it was a direct reflection of his deep, hidden talent for understanding and controlling financial flows. He truly understood where every cent went, a skill that few monarchs before or since ever possessed with such dedication. Franz Joseph. The first, the Stoic emperor, was also the most formidable accountant the Habsburgs ever had, a surprising genius for the numbers behind the empire.